USB flash drives are dirt cheap. They're everywhere. In fact, you probably have a bunch right now sitting somewhere gathering dust. So let's put them to good use. Pictures, music, too easy. Applications for using your PC, not bad, but how about using them to put an entire bootable operating system so you can customize your PC without having to modify anything on your hard drive? We're going to show you how to do this on this episode of System. This episode of System is brought to you by Netflix and GoDaddy.com. So you got a dozen or so USB flash drives lying around the house. Sure, they're handy for sneaker-netting files around, maybe keeping things, well, a little bit safer, because, you never know when you might need that list of tax deductions.
Actually, they're great if you, especially if you're in school and you're trading notes from class. Perfect thing.
These are just the ones you found in your desk at work, right?
These are the ones we use at work. We have on total, 6, 8, 10? We have 10 of these.
Probably another 5 in my desk drawer. Here's the thing though, why not try playing around with them as an emergency boot disk or a way to run the same applications and files you need no matter what machine you're using, or even something like securing your ability to browse when you're using somebody else's machine.
Yes. Now, oftentimes, especially if you're in an environment where you don't actually have your own machine, but you have access to it, you're often kind of paranoid, like, well, what if I want to run a Windows browser, not Windows browser, but a web browser? You want to go, check out something, but you don't necessarily want someone to know what you've been doing.
Or you're at that friend's house where, they've got a lot of stuff loaded on their machine and they have a habit of getting their machine infested, and you're thinking to yourself, I want to do something, but I want to make sure there's no Trojans or anything filthy or nasty on their machine that's going to impact my life because I used a password or something.
Or you have a PC not working, can't get anything else to run on it. It's a great way to kind of troubleshoot those issues that you have, especially if you run Windows, because we all know that Windows has its issues.
So, Ubuntu, XP, what other kinds of operating systems can you boot from a USB thumb drive?
You can do Vista. Now, the thing with Windows is you're not necessarily booting the entire operating system. You're not going to be presented with the desktop GUI with all the functionality that you're used to. They're essentially part of what Windows, or actually Microsoft, calls the Windows PE, or pre-installed environment. Mm-hmm. And it was meant for IT guys to do rapid installation over a lot of machines without necessarily having to carry a disk to each one. They could basically load everything they need to on a thumb drive, boot up the machine, and then install all the rest off a network.
So you're going to be able to use it like with XP or Vista, or you're going to have a command line-y kind of interface?
You have an interface, and it is a GUI. It's like Windows 95, 98, but it's very low resolution, and it's not fully functional in the way that you're going to be running, say, a game or even like a full-fledged web browser. You will have access to your drives, your network, a few other functionality things that you need to get your machine up and running. Now, for Ubuntu, this is the great thing. Typically, Linux, when people think of Linux, it's oftentimes a very kind of hard, obtuse process trying to get it to work.
Well, it used to be. It's gotten a lot easier.
It's gotten a lot easier, and essentially, instead of doing a live CD of Ubuntu, you put it on a thumb drive, and you can use it on another machine, and you can actually save all the information you have. So you say, I went out and I found this great deal on a car on a web browser. I can save it, close out the machine, have everything stored on this thumb drive, come back home, plug it in, it'll still be there.
Cool.
So it'll have all the benefits of a live CD, except that you can store data on it.
I like that thought.
So let's get things started. Now, I went through this process for about a week, and I realized you need 2 things to make this happen. One, you need a BIOS in your machine that allows you to boot from a USB device, a USB flash drive. And 2, you need a flash drive that actually allows you to boot. Now, with all these I have in front of me, I think this, no, not that one. This one.
So the 3 cheapest drives actually allow you to boot the operating system?
Yes. I have one more plugged into another machine. The rest of these, including this 8 gigabyte one and this 2 gigabyte one I actually paid for out of my own pocket, do not work.
Why?
Don't know. I'm still trying to figure...
In theory, they should all be compatible with this.
There is a section of the drive that it needs to look at, essentially the MBR that you would have on a hard drive. It needs to be kind of replicated on the thumb drive. I've managed to do it before on a Linux install, and you essentially make a hidden partition on there. But for some reason, I couldn't get it to work with these two. I think it's probably to do with the size on the 8 gig. And the SanDisk, just no luck. It all turns out to be the really cheapy, freebie ones that I've been getting at CES that seem to work.
Maybe because I don't have any cool guy bundled applications tearing up the drive.
So what I recommend to you is before you go out and buy a whole bunch of thumb drives, see if there's any spare ones you got lying around and see if they work or not. Because you know what? These all look exactly the same other than the fact that the logo, except this is the only one that works. These three, actually the Zune works, believe it or not. Okay, these three work. The rest of these do not.
All right, well, let's get these out of the way.
Yes.
Where do we start? You want to start with XP?
We'll start with XP since everyone's familiar with this. Now, you can do this with Vista using the latest Windows PE, not for Vista, but allows you to do Vista. But what I like to use is something called Bart's PE Builder, also shorthand Bart PE. He basically took the Microsoft product and he made it better. He actually included a bunch of tools. So in terms of functionality for the average person, I think Bart PE is a lot better than the Microsoft.
What's the PE? Is it like a slipstreaming tool or power?
PE, pre-installed environment. So this is all the tools that you need to get a machine up and running and working. So all you need to do is go straight to Bart PE's site and download his application. Oh, there it is. Take me to download. You basically download the top one, uninstall it. You're going to get a folder. Let me pull this back up. And once you do, you can expand it. Create a folder in your root directory, preferably C, D, whatever, but make sure it's root because it's just simpler. It's not that you have to. It just makes things a lot easier. I created one called USB boot. And then I basically have everything from Bart PE. Second thing I need to do is create this folder right here, SRSP1. Very important you keep that labeled as SRSP1 because this is what Bart PE looks for when it does the whole kind of shebang install. So all you really need is your XP Pro install disk, and you need to download Service Pack 1 for Windows 2003 server, or Windows Server 2003.
Will it work on the cheap XP Home version?
Everything I've read requires Pro because Pro has the tools that you need in order to function. Once you download the Microsoft Windows Service Pack for Windows Server 2003, you are going to extract it into the directory. You don't have to do it in the directory. I just do it because it's simple. It keeps everything in one place. You will basically come up with this folder I386, and there's two things you need to extract from this folder.
But they're critical.
So to expand it, first thing you do is you take the file, and what I did was it comes out with a really long kind of Microsoft-y revision name. So there's a bunch of zeros, numbers. I shortened it. I shortened it to WS_SP1 because you're going to need to go into the command line, and you do this by going to the start button, type command. All right, I'm at the command prompt, and this is why I tell you to do it at the root directory because it's so much easier to do a single folder down than like 500 and 3 other drives across.
So basically, the USB boot is the folder you're creating and all the contents of it that are going to go onto the thumb drive.
That is correct.
Okay.
And now you can use a different name. I used USB boot because it just helps me identify that particular folder.
Easy to remember.
Easy to remember. And as I said, I renamed this file, this WSSP1. That is the file I need. And because it downloads and it has 200 or 20 plus characters on it, if you shorten it, it's a lot easier to type. So I put space -X, and that will expand it. And it's going to ask me where I want it. So I'm going to say, Now, when it does, it's going to automatically generate another folder, I386, and it's going to dump everything in there. And as I said,
you only need like 3 files out of that.
2. You only need 2 files out of 320 odd megs. So now I'm going to change from from the US boot directory into one more subfolder, and that's the I386.
Because you're going to get all text-based computing and manually copy these over rather than going into here and finding 2 files out of a list of 300 and
pretty much. I mean, it's actually easier since I already know what I'm looking for.
Right.
So let's see if we can find it first. So we'll do this. It's setup.
So CD, change directory.
And then I know I want the setup loader bin, and I just did a quick wildcard search for setup. So let's copy it. And what I need to do is I need to copy it over to the folder that I just created, which was the SPSR1 or SP1. You know, there's a lot of letters that you need to remember, and I'm trying to make it, you can tell I really don't type that much anymore. It's all that mouse-based contextual business. So let's copy it over to USB. Oh, Lord, it's so long since I've done this.
You were doing this morning,
Yes.
you were doing this yesterday.
Oh, I had one in there already. Ha! So let's, and okay, that's the first file I need, and this is, of course, the bootloader that I need. And next, I need to expand the RAM disk. So let's try to find that real quick. It's just a ghost, don't worry. Whoops. So we're going to expand it by typing expand -r space RAM disk .sy and put the underscore because I did that one time and it didn't work. So I then need to tell it where I want it to expand, or SP1.
So basically, you just need the 2 sys files.
Yep, and it's done.
Cool.
So not much to look at, but those are the files I need. Next I need to do is run the PE builder. All right, so we got our files expanded and copied over, our 2 files. Next we basically open up PE builder. So I stuck in my XP Pro disk. Actually, it's a slipstream version, so it's all the updates. But you can use your bone stock XP Pro disk. And what you want to do is select the source, and the source being the drive. So open here, and then it knows that's where Windows will be. Output, make sure it says BART PE. And finally, let's make sure media output none. We do not want to create an ISO. Everything else is good. And all you have to do is click build. And then as it chews on it, it spins up my disk. So there it goes. Crunch, 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 crunch. Chomp, 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 chomp. So yeah, you just basically come back after 20 minutes or so. All right, it's done. Click close. We are finito. Back to the command line. All right, so final thing we need to do is make sure we are back in the US boot directory, and we're going to look for this file right here, the PE2USB. Not necessarily the bin, but type that.
Not the builder, but the PE2 USB.
Yep.
Okay.
And then space. -F, and then we got I just plugged in one of my boot drives. So let's see where it is located and what the file name is. So we know it's E.
drive.
So let's go to here and hit E:. All I have to do is hit enter and
Dun, dun, dun.
give me yes.
In uppercase.
Yes, you cannot type it lowercase. It's designed specifically so you can't screw it up. So it's going to basically verify all 487 megs, even though it's a 512.
Nice.
The whole kind of rounding and formatting issue. When it's done, it's going to give me a completely bootable USB stick that I can then boot up a machine with. The BIOS setup, now this might look a little different than the one on your particular machine, but generally everything is roughly in the same location. You want to look for a boot setting in your BIOS. And as you can see here, mine's already preset, but typically if it was at the bottom, if you look on the right, it will tell you whether or not you can enable it by using the minus or plus key. And I gotta hold down the shift here, and I can move it up. Now you'll notice there's USB flash and USB hard disk. On some BIOSes, there's a difference. USB hard drive expects to see a normal hard drive, where a USB flash, there's some things that the BIOS will not expect, or rather expect to see. So again, if you have the USB flash option, choose that, and literally exit and save. Ta-da! All right, here we go. I'm going to say no because it does not have the drivers for my particular network devices in here. But as you can see, all you need to do is go down to the magic where it says go. And now I can do check disks. I have system tools. I have a WordPad. Oh, it's really hard to do it from this side of the screen. Here, let's do this. Click WordPad. Click that. Now I have WordPad I can type. If I wanted to, I could also do System tools, I can do disk copy. Let's
Start, run, CMD, format, C colon.
or if say like I want to check disk, I can do C colon and hit enter, and then it will no yes. So it's basically a tool that gets you up and running once everything has gone to complete failure, or you need to get some old machine without any drives in it, and you just want to test it because you need to see if the machine still works, or this and that. And you don't want to go through the whole laborious process of installing a new CD drive or a new hard drive into it. So it's actually a really handy tool if you do a lot of troubleshooting, just to keep in your back pocket and kind of do.
Will this drive pretty much run on anything, or is it only going to run on the machine it was configured for?
Oh, it'll run on any PC as long as that PC will boot from a USB device. So I can use that in this laptop. I've used it in our other laptop. Used it at home. It works on all three. All these machines were made in the past 2 years. So.
And can you add in additional applications?
I believe you can, but that involves you going through a lot more involved process of adding those functions into the BART PE loader itself, which I do not want to get into right now.
It's time to thank one of the sponsors of today's episode of System, GoDaddy.com. If you want to make an impact online, GoDaddy.com has what you need, starting at less than $5 a month. Web hosting from GoDaddy.com includes 99% uptime, 24/7 support, and free access to the GoDaddy hosting connection. The place to quickly install over 50 free applications like WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, OS Commerce, and more. GoDaddy.com makes it easy to customize your own virtual dedicated server. Choose one of 3 popular plans, or select your own Linux or Windows server with all the plan options you need. You want to save some cash? Of course you do. Entering code SYS1, that's SYS1, when you check out, and you'll save an additional 10% off your entire order. Some restrictions apply. See the site for details. Do us a favor, help us keep System on the air, and get your piece of the internet at GoDaddy.com, and use that code SYS1 when you do. System. All right, so one of the nice things about doing Ubuntu versus, say, XP is you actually have a full, complete installation of the operating system, and you can pretty much do anything with it that you could do on the version installed on the hard drive.
Yes. In fact, one of the great features of a live CD, of course, is that you don't have to install it. So you don't have to worry about destroying any kind of partitioning or Windows installs that you have on your main machine.
So you actually booted a live CD, and they're using the live CD to install the installation on the USB thumb drive?
So this is the cool thing about the latest version of Ubuntu 8.10, which is the Intrepid Ibex. As you can tell, there's a little Ibex watermark on the desktop here.
Ingenious Iguana.
Ingenious Iguana. Why had 2 eyes? I don't know. Maybe they like the double H eyes.
Well, they always do the double.
Janky jackalope.
Don't
all right,
go there.
all right. So
Jolly jackalope.
Typically, before 8.10, to make a bootable flash drive, you actually had to go through an entire process of formatting, using a Linux partitioner to create the file system on the thumb drive, and do the entire process.
And the line was drawn in the sand.
So in Ubuntu 8.10, it's built into the system, super easy. I mean, super easy.
Simple.
Stupid simple. Go to System, Admin, and then you have the function to create a USB startup disk. Click that, and as long as you have a thumb drive.
And it's a universal USB startup disk, not one specific to the system you're running.
Exactly. So as long as it's a PC, you can boot from USB, and it allows you to boot from a USB drive. It works. So right here, I have the CD, the source file, and of course the USB disk to use. Stored in reserved extra space. This is where all that data. Typically, when you're surfing the web on a live CD, once you close that, you lose everything.
Right. Your history.
Not the case with
documents.
with the USB drive. Not the case. It'll actually save it, so you can pull it up at a later date. Just create as much space as you want. Just needs enough space to copy everything over, and click Make Startup Disk. When it's done, it's done. It's pretty sweet. All right, so I have it set up, and it will begin to boot. So now we have our finished USB drive. It booted straight into it. So right now it might look like the live CD, but actually this is running off the thumb drive. And I'm going to do that. Try Ubuntu without any changes to my machine. This is where having USB 2.0 actually comes in handy. So now we have a scan of the screen, and as we can see, it is full. So let me open up. See if it remembers. See, now as you can see, it's actually looking It remembers. I did not need to type in my my Wi-Fi network. It remembered it from the last time I was in this location. So, and again, look, start new session or restore previous session. I can restore the previous session I had. And
Are you looking at where we're getting savaged in the forums?
yes, but as you just saw, I did not need to type in anything. Everything was saved. It was persistent. I had everything that I was doing saved on the thumb drive, so that meant when I rebooted off the thumb drive,
It's pretty cool that way.
yeah, it's actually one of the best ways I think to use Ubuntu right now is on the thumb drive, because it allows you that flexibility of using other people's machines without necessarily worrying about security, unless someone put some sort of hardware keylogger and a bunch of port sniffers and packet sniffers and stuff like
network,
that.
yeah.
But it's great, and you know what? It's really easy to do, and it's not that expensive. I mean, other than the cost of a couple of these drives, I mean, again, 8 of the 10 I have are like freebies from CES.
Well, it's also fun because you can build one of these and basically test it on different hardware configurations in your house. The slow machines, the fast machines, without actually having to commit to install everything.
And that's the great thing. For those who are afraid of commitment, this is actually the best of both worlds. You can try out, especially for those of you who want to do Linux, but are afraid to commit their entire machine over to that operating system. It's a great way for you to play with it, kind of get familiar with it, and then kind of make the decision at that point, yeah, I want to go full bore with Linux, and then you can do all the rest of the package installations if you want to do additional applications and stuff.
Nice.
It's time now for our Netflix-sponsored pick of the week. This week, the legendary, the perfect, the amazing, the delightful Ghostbusters. This 1984 classic stars Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis as a team, of college professors thrown out of the university who decide to offer a ghost removal service to the people of New York City. Demonic possessions, giant marshmallow men, ray guns, this movie has it all. Just don't cross the streams. And hey, you know what? Iconic logos, unforgettable theme songs. If you haven't seen this movie yet, you're missing out on a slew of pop culture references and one of our favorite movies ever. So put it at the top of your Netflix queue today. Don't want to watch Ghostbusters? Check out the other 89,999 titles Netflix has to offer, including, we're willing to bet, more Blu-ray discs than you can find at your local DVD store. You're bound to find any title you're looking for, and with 40 shipping centers, almost all deliveries happen in a single business day. Shipping, both ways, free. Plans start at $4.99 a month, but you're a system viewer, so we've got a hookup for you. Get a free trial by signing up today at www.netflix.com/system. Please support System by supporting our sponsors. We've seen everything from secure browsing to general purpose applications installed on thumb drives. We're very curious to hear what your favorite thumb drive applications, basically what you're carrying around on a thumb drive so you can run on other people's machines. Kick us an email, system@revision3.com, or go to the forums, revision3.com/forums, go to the system section, and look for a thread about thumb drive applications. Now, you've heard of the TED conference, now check out the Bill conference. Revision 3 will be live at this grassroots meeting of gigantic minds as big ideas are discussed and presented. Join us for live streaming all day February 7th and 8th on revision3.com/Bill, and that's BIL1L.
And of course, the old episodes of System are available at revision3.com/system.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of System. I'm Patrick Norton.
And I'm Roger Chang.
We're going to see you next week, where I've been getting, it's DNS.
DNS?
Actually, it's dynamic DNS. And other non-DIN DNS. We're going to talk about basically remote accessing your router, your home servers, without having to pay for a static IP address.
Oh, that would be a godsend, especially for people like me who don't really use static IP enough to make it worth it.
We have some fun coming for you next week.
Nice.
We'll see you next week on System.
Oh.
I might as well move it down a little bit. And then you hug a cheddar.
No.
He never hugs me.
Oh no, come on. He's not fair.
No, tickle.